Well, morning everyone. Thanks for joining us today. The topic for today that we're going to discuss is about how do we keep momentum through this period of lockdown? Yeah, it's I know we have a lot of people joining us that work in the church environment, and we have Estienne Els. He's a good friend of ours. He runs the technical stuff at Mosaic here in Joburg.
Oh, hi guys. Yes, my name's Estienne, like Nathan said. I'm a technical manager in Mosaic Church in Fairlands, Johannesburg. My background, grew up in church, always been involved with the sound desk from a young age, and went into the rental industry for sure. Worked with a lot of international bands, toured around as a technical guy for a lot of South African bands, and then got an opportunity to go back into the church world, and took it. Been there for the past 2 years. That's me.
And then it's Sepang Rafat from Grace Bible Church.
I'm from Grace Bible Church. Been in the AV and sound industry for quite a while. I started first. My first professional job was at Gear House, and then from there I moved to a convention center, CSR, and then I moved to church to serve there. I've been with the church for 11. I've been doing the move to church, opened more for me when I got involved more in AV, more in things like video conferencing, streaming, things like that. Yeah. So that's a brief history about me.
Okay, cool. And then Guillaume Colbe from Hillsong. He's responsible for their national production efforts.
How's it, Nathan? How's it, guys? It's awesome to be here. So my name's Guillaume. I help oversee our technical for Hillsong South Africa, which consists of 9 locations in South Africa, as well as one in Kenya, which was actually meant to launch now prior to this lockdown, and happened. So that's been put on hold a bit, but we've got a strong location thriving in Kenya at the moment. We host 9 locations. A bit of my background is I've been at church, well, a part of the Hillsong group for about 7 years as staff now, prior to just being a volunteer, as well as working a bit in the production industry before that, and kind of studying music, and as well as my bachelor's degree. Prior to all of this, I've kind of just been in the realms of technology for most part of my post-matric years. A bit on Hillsong, I guess, like Nathan, you mentioned, just to mention a bit about the organization itself. Hillsong has been going in South Africa for the last 12. We're in our 12th year now as Hillsong Church South Africa, and originally Hillsong launched in 1983 in Sydney. So it's been around for a bit. We're hosting about, I think, 29 countries and 6 continents right now. Is kind of where things are at, and the reach of Hillsong as a global church. But that's kind of what we get to be a part of. So obviously it's part of a massive global scope. So what we get to be a part of in South Africa, what I get to help outwork is not only national in terms of that, but I guess we're outworking a global kind of picture. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
In short.
Yeah. So let's talk about a month ago now, or more than a month ago, when the president first announced like the restrictions on gatherings and that sort of stuff. I know sort of as that discussion was going on TV, I was already getting messages about, how do we quickly, like before the following Sunday, spin up a kind of online presence. So I know that sort of thing caught a lot of guys, off guard, and they had to respond to that really quickly. Also would have to stop their ministry altogether. What was the kind of discussion within your guys' relevant teams when that organization took place? Like, what was the feeding from leadership and everyone else in the team?
Yeah, maybe I'll start it off. I think it obviously threw up a lot of questions. Definitely put us in a place where we had to think quickly and respond quickly. Our immediate was obviously great. We've got, at the time when we knew it was essentially 3 Sundays of us not being able to gather in our buildings, we had a little space upstairs in our building at Century City where we hired in a bunch of cameras and things like that, and we actually just produced content or recorded 3 worship sets as well as 3 messages from Phil and Lucinda, and as well as the in-betweeners, a little welcome greets, little snippets, little bios and things we did. And we essentially recorded 3 weekends of content that we would then put on our online platform. That was the immediate thought, but obviously as well as to how do we still keep running midweek and all the various programs we have. And obviously we run an internship, so trying to get all those lessons online, as well as all of our meetings and all that kind of stuff online, definitely threw a massive, like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? And I think a large part of what we're doing, and even now we're still kind of figuring out what this looks like, because a lot of it is learning on the fly, because it's definitely an environment we've not really needed to put so much importance on or value on. Like, even though it was there's been some form of online presence, but I think the more now we realize that this is the only way people are essentially connecting in, it definitely has opened a lot of questions to, okay, what is the right approach, the right tool to use, and all that kind of stuff. We've definitely jumped in the deep end of stuff. The announcement has made us jump into that deep end of all of it. So yeah, I mean, that's been the immediate process. Is just obviously we were able to record a bit of content now that looks different, because obviously it was extended, so we had to come up with 2 more Sundays. So what's happening kind of right now is there's a little setup we've managed to do at Pastor Phil's house, a little basic camera setup. One of our comms team guys actually was allowed to have an essential services permit, because it's part of our Hillsong Africa Foundation, and what they're doing is actually work in the communities and giving out food parcels, so we're able to include in that essential services, so they're able to help record messages from that perspective. But the rest we're busy figuring out and doing home recordings and trying to do like post editing of some really raw footage, and some of our worship team live in their own little home setups. And then yeah, that's where we're at currently.
Sure. All right, what about you guys, Estienne?
Yeah, it was a very interesting 2 days for us. So we got together quite quickly. We sat down as a team and said, you know what, guys, this kind of we need to make this happen. So we're very fortunate though, because we supply content to K-Connect. So we have essential broadcast permits, so we could continue to to go in and do what we needed to do. But I mean, that first week was quite hectic. We recorded enough content up to just after Easter, and which we got together quite quickly, got the team together, our worship team. We did a stripped down version on our stage, got all the pastors together. Everyone worked really well together. I must say, our team, which I'm very proud of, to be a part of them. I know a lot of them are watching, so I do feel that I have one of the best teams. Just giving them a shout out. Yeah, we got together, we recorded a whole bunch of content. So we've got a massive archive of content as well. But we got together, we recorded a bunch of content, we worked through it. Currently now we are still, like I said, the online presence for us is, like Guillaume also said, it's been there, it's been good. But it's exploded now. The figures and what we are looking at across our platforms and total views have gone from, a couple of thousand now up to over, close between 8 to almost 13,000 viewers, across the platforms. So for us, it's exploded. So I must say, the support's been really good. You know, we also quite involved with a lot of projects, feeding projects, stuff like that. So you know, the response and new members that have come on board has been phenomenal. So but yeah, it's definitely something new for us. You know, we were very used to our gatherings and services and stuff, and we have an extreme amount of teaching opportunities outside of church as well, which is also, you know, interesting times. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Okay. So, what about you?
Well, for us, the approach is a bit different to what I've had other guys say. I think for us as well, the shock was a bit too much. First of all, we have some online presence, but mostly it has been focused on Sunday services, just streaming that. So it was a bit of a change for everyone involved, including the leaders. So first approach for us was they asked that we maintain a more live feel. So we did think about the option of recording, but they felt it might not be a good experience for most of the people because most people are used to that kind of live feel. And then the other new thing that we introduced was that we set up Bishop at his house to be able to have 5 o'clock prayers in the morning. But that he does by himself. Yeah. Besides that, there was also the issue of we have TV programs that also run on other platforms, which put us in a very tight spot, but we tried to put together some other older content to broadcast there. And then also, due to in response to the lockdown and understanding that some people might not have access to internet, we also opted for going for a live feed to a local station, so to TV. So that addresses people who might not have data to follow us online as a response to the lockdown.
Okay, cool. There was a brief internet gap, but yeah, I think we got the gist of it. But yeah, so is that more or less what's continuing to this day, or is that something that was just set up for the initial, you know, social distancing regulations?
Well, we are looking into increasing it beyond the lockdown because it has sort of like adjusted how we, allow me to say, do church now, where we've had to transition to more of engaging people more on an online experience. So we are in talks now of adjusting how things are done in terms of now being more aware of viewers who are online instead of just focusing on the people who are watching, who are physically in our buildings. So there are other things we're looking into to try improve on that. Oh, and something else that I forgot to mention, before the lockdown, we were never live on things like Facebook. So we are doing that now, which also gives us a wider reach in terms of people.
Okay. And what about Guillaume and Estienne? What do you think will change for you guys after this ends in terms of the online presence and how you guys are doing live streaming and church online?
Yeah, I think it definitely, I think what the guys are even asking in our worlds is kind of what is this new normal going to look like for us? And obviously with this online presence, you know, we're not, I think the unfortunate thing that we're all really a part of is we don't really know what we're heading back into. You know, just as a whole, not even within church, but I think a lot of businesses as a fact, you know, we're asking kind of what is this new normal of doing things. Like a lot of things are going to look different, and obviously what we've noted, like some of the guys are mentioning even, that the online presence numbers is literally quadrupled from maybe what our average attendance would have been. So there's definitely been a lot more people taking part of this online way of doing things. So it definitely is making us ask a lot of questions. You know, how do we keep that engagement going, and how do we craft something that's really valuable? And you know, like they mentioned, you know, not everybody maybe enjoys this thought of pre-recorded things, and they really enjoy this live element. You know, so how do we have a good balance between the two? and make sure that we're obviously staying within what the teams are capable of outworking at the moment. And it will definitely push us to a place where we are, establishing better ways of doing online, and not only that, but in our office culture or office midweek events, like we have midweek programs, like some of the guys are mentioning they have as well. We have internships that are happening. We have our creative team nights that are happening, which is where all the creatives kind of gather, and where we've done rehearsals, and how we're connecting with all those people. So I think we're still figuring it out. I don't think we have it all pieced together yet, but I think the main theme here is there's definitely a big need now to know in which direction we're heading when it comes to the online presence, because there is definitely a bigger need for that. If we're going on talks, again, this is just talk, so there's no real, don't quote me on this, but from what government is mentioning, maybe, what if the scenario is that gatherings or large gatherings are only allowed to happen again, June, July, even later, September even, what is the case? Or I think the question is being asked, what if that is what's going to happen? What do we do up until that time? Because lockdown might end, but large gatherings will not happen. So I guess what are we doing in churches, and I guess within the industry itself, and all the large events that we've been accustomed to having? What is that going to look like? So yeah, I think the importance of us, I think, figuring out what a great remedy is, and especially what birthed, I think, this conversation, and that you guys at Stage AudioWorks are doing, that's great, is this teaching platform, and a lot of guys are doing. It's very helpful. It's something that hasn't maybe been, it hasn't maybe happened so regularly, like where all these, you see a lot of companies out there are doing these great online things, and free resources are out there now, which maybe we didn't have access to at first, but which is a great step towards this online presence way of doing things.
What about you, Estienne?
We're aware of, this is life as we know it changed fairly abruptly, and it's an everyday step-by-step thing for us. We constantly having meetings about the future and seeing where we're going, and how we're gonna go forward from this. But it's exactly what Guillaume said, is we don't know what's going to happen. I think from our side, just what we've planned out is to, because we still have the ability to go in and record some stuff, which I know for some of the other guys is difficult, because they have setups at home. I know a lot of other churches that I've spoken to have done similar setups at home. We're fortunate in the way that we can go in, but our approach right now is we've primarily put together 2 teams, so that if one team, someone falls ill, that team can change with the other team, and then we can continue to record. Same with the worship, same with our production. But I mean, we've prepared ourselves. We leadership and everyone has been in a couple of meetings, and we've spoken about the fact that we might go on like this until September or even later in the year, and we've prepared ourselves for it. It's a very difficult thing with the gatherings for us, and I mean, all of us have seen a need, if I can call it that, for people, because the community is super important to us, because it's all about people. That's kind of what we do this, and it's interesting. It's interesting times for us ahead. So yeah, there's been a lot of great, like Guillaume said, and I also want to touch on this. There's a lot of great companies in South Africa that's given out a lot of free content, courses. Some of the international companies, DMB, I know, has done some phenomenal stuff. And I've seen a lot of the Wave stuff has been great. So my teams are all like, buying into this online thing and trying to better themselves, which is phenomenal. I have a great volunteer base. They've all bought into the idea of how do we make this work. So I must say from our side, our volunteers has been phenomenal. I mean, we recording some of our stuff that we're doing now as volunteers are putting themselves at risk, and in harm's way. So yeah, I must say I'm very, very grateful for the people around us. So our teams have bought into the whole online concept and the idea of it. Our focus is completely shifted now onto this, the platforms, our graphic team, all the designers, production managers, producers, everyone is kind of pulled in. And yeah, I must say I'm quite excited to see, I'm quite excited to see what we were able to achieve in a very little, like a short time space. What we were able to achieve and to do is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think how are you guys engaging with the congregation outside of like this one directional type of broadcast or service broadcast? Are you doing like video conferencing for like cell groups or youth or this kind of stuff, or how is that all working?
So there's a few avenues we're doing. So we're actually hosting, they call them VPNs essentially on Sundays. So that it's called volunteer prayer meetings. Essentially, is that we're inviting. So generally, on a Sunday we would have these volunteer prayer meetings where all the volunteers gather and essentially pray for the services, like the 8, the 10:30, and 11. And we still continued that kind of scope. So we'll create a Zoom meetings ahead of time. We'll send it out to all these people, and then they'll actually join in on Zoom calls leading up to a Sunday or before a service that we're going live essentially. And we've really used kind of, I'm saying we use Zoom, and there's a lot of great platforms out there, but we've kind of just stuck to that one, and we've essentially just done this like large room online hangouts with people. And we would do that midweek as well. So we'd have our meetings online. We'd have our creative team nights we've been having online and having some engagement. It's been from serious interviews with some of our Sydney team or some people in the industry to like really crazy fun sessions with teams. What our church has also kind of responded in doing is we're actually doing phone calls apart from all the Zoom meetings, but we've kind of just put the challenge out there to literally call every person on our database and just find out how they're doing personally. So we've literally, because obviously a lot of our staff team's focus is now diverted from not maybe needing to do what they would do practically in a week. So maybe some of them have a bit more time, and they're actually taking that time and focusing on literally calling every single person that we might have on record or know that's part of the congregation across the 9 locations. And they're doing personal phone calls and being like, hey, how you doing? Is there anything you need? What is your experience of church online? Is there anything you can do, And I think we're constantly also, in terms of, like you asked, keeping in contact with the congregation, opening up platforms for feedback, opening up platforms where people can plug into and communicate to, and making sure that it's not just a one-directional stream of information going out, but that we're opening ourselves up for feedback and also really finding out where the need is and where people are at, which helps us, get a gauge, so that it's not almost like a one-track minded approach, but it's really, we're trying to get perspectives from as many people as possible to know where the need is and therefore adjust our approach accordingly. And trying our best to keep in contact with everyone essentially that is in our world and that comes into our worlds, or that is involved on the online, and seeing how we can help and stay in contact with them. And like you said, making sure that this concept of community is still upheld and people feel like they're involved with something. And even though in this kind of like lockdown isolation, that they feel that they're not alone in a way, that they still are part of something, or just have, and it doesn't have to be serious. I think we've realized that it doesn't always necessarily have to be this serious conversation of how you, but sometimes it's a joke and a great conversation or having a coffee together with someone. We have a lot of little hangouts where like some of us literally get together on a Sunday and we have coffee together and talk the most random things, you know, and I think that's needed, just that community and friendship essentially.
Yeah. How about you guys,
Yeah.
Stefan?
Okay, so for us, one of the strong elements we have as a church is what we call cell groups. I know other people call them meeting. I think small group meeting. So from that perspective, the cell group leaders have a lot of engagements with their team members or cell members in terms of contact. I know some cell meetings have Zoom meetings. Others, they chat a lot on WhatsApp, just to keep that constant communication with each other. But some of the things that the leaders have encouraged is to also check how people are doing. So just constantly check, just say hi. Sometimes it doesn't, like Guillaume say, you don't have to have a serious conversation, just to check if people are still okay. And then also something else that's very strong is WhatsApp groups. So for example, in our team, we have separate groups for separate teams or separate functions. And some of the team members, what they'll do, or some of the groups, on Sunday, when they're watching the Sunday service, they will simulate a Sunday service and sort of like act as if they are actually in the auditorium. You know, someone will make a joke and say, hey, stage comms are off. Stage monitor levels are loud, you know, there's a message from production to, you know, so there's sort of like trying to bring that actual experience so that they sort of don't lose touch. So I've seen that it has helped the teams to also feel like they are still together, you know. We encourage a lot of engagement. So we've kind of like created an environment where people feel like they're at home. So that has helped in terms of getting people to constantly remain in contact. Then another element is that on our Facebook page, on the YouTube chats, and on Twitter, we also have a social media team that sort of like keeps watch on what are people saying there, what engagements, what are the questions they're asking, and then if it's something that needs intervention or to be addressed by the leaders, they bring it to the leaders' attention. So we try and follow those conversations as well to make sure that we remain relevant to whatever people are asking or need to know. Yeah, so we try as much as we can to also just keep that vibe going where we still remain as a team, as a family. And then I think that guys also mentioned the issue of webinars. So part of the other things that we do is that we encourage people to subscribe or register. And then if they're registered, we'll chat on those WhatsApp groups. If there are other concepts that maybe they might not understand or they don't know how to phrase it in the actual webinar. So we'll be on that WhatsApp group to chat amongst each other just to make sure that everyone is engaging. So we are also encouraging people to learn more, to study more, to research more on equipment. You know, you'll be amazed at how many people don't read manuals on the equipment they have, and only to find out that some of the features they need is there. So we're encouraging people that now invest more time in learning about the gear you have, learning about how other people are doing what they're doing, you know, see what other churches are doing, learn more. Yeah, so that's basically what we're trying to do, to just keep in contact with everyone. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What about you guys, Estienne? I know you've got some pretty unique ideas.
So we have a lobby before our services that we run with a bunch of hosts as well. So it's a Zoom where you can just pull in and just have a casual chat, just check everyone, start chatting, and yeah, we have a great host team. It's also part of our pastoral. One of our pastors heads up that whole community as well. So you can pray for people, they can connect with people, and just make people part of the community. But it's very similar to what Sapang said. You know, we have a lot of great teams, you know, and basically within our structure within our volunteers, we call them medewerkers, but within our volunteer groups is we've raised up leaders within those teams to look or to communicate or to have community with other volunteers. So it's kind of self-sustaining. A lot of our groups have volunteers running the groups, and so that's we have a great community, and the communication is fantastic in our community. So yeah, I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, I mean, I guess Easter was a pretty big one in this period that, you know, a lot of guys had big plans for that. I know specifically Tsepang, for those who don't know, Grace Bible Church hosts a massive Easter event in a stadium that we put on ice. What did you guys do differently for Easter weekend compared to a normal online service? Did you change anything up, or did you just continue as normal?
Yeah, first I must mention it was a shock to our system. You know, we've gotten so used to being at the stadium. So, I mean, we noted not just church members on our groups complaining, you know, some saying, oh, it's so painful. So it was quite a bit of a shock to our system. I think in 20 years is the first time we've not been at a stadium or not been able to gather as a church. So, you know, it's quite different. So our approach, we had a different, our approach for this year was that on Friday, so we played last year's service, the Good Friday service at the stadium, just to bring that experience across to everyone. So that's what we played out on Friday. So we just had a brief intro, played the entire service, including music. And then on Saturday, we had a live program on one of the TV programs on TV. And then on Sunday, we had our normal, our new way of now doing online services. So yeah, those are the changes we made in terms of Good Friday. So yeah, so it was quite an interesting experience, and also I think I must add that it also allowed us as a team to also be able to look at how we do Good Friday. So there was a lot of learnings in terms of how we normally do church at the stadium. So I mean, I know, for example, the camera team, they had the hardest time because, well, everyone is looking at the video. So reviewing their work, so it's kind of like really opened our eyes to see, because it's easy for us when you are in the zone or in the space to not actually be able to see from the outside what you're doing, how it looks like. So you can easily think that you're still doing a great job, but only to realize that when you really look at yourself, then you realize the things that you need to improve on. So yeah, so for us, Good Friday, there was the element of missing the stadium, but also it offered us an opportunity to review how we do Good Friday, what are the things we can do to improve, things that sometimes when you are in there, you don't see, but when you are looking from outside, then you're able to see. So yeah, that was Good Friday for us.
All right, cool. What about for the other guys?
Yeah, so we would generally, what a normal weekend would look like around Easter is we would have our Good Friday services at all our locations, and then our Sunday would generally be a global Easter presentation. So where our lead pastor Brian Newson would do something. So we were fortunate in that sense on that Sunday, because for the Friday we managed to obviously pre-record something that Phil would have done. So locally we were able to just pre-record something we would done, obviously try to keep it light-hearted and fun like they would usually do, but then as well as just the message that we would do. Then on Saturday we actually did the Hillsong London guys that have had this, I think, 15-year running production called King of Heaven, which we then actually used as the Sunday production, which is a pretty great production they've done. So we used that as the Saturday segment, and then on Sunday we had the resource that Sydney actually had produced for the Easter production. So it definitely was different, and I think not being able to gather everyone together was the massive element, but it was pretty great that we were still able to achieve some extent of it. Yeah, so Easter, I mean, we didn't have a massive thing like the guys that weren't able to have a event at like Tsepang and them at the stadium, which I can't imagine. That must have been rough. But I think we were fortunate in this way that we actually had, to some extent, content, and we were able to still produce some content for the Easter weekend. And yeah, so that's kind of what we were left with.
Yeah, Easter. It's I guess for all of us, it's pretty much one of the biggest weekends of the year. I think from our side, we have quite a big production as well for Easter weekend. Good Friday, we normally have a live event, a couple of shows, and we got some artists. We created kind of a community vibe as well for Easter. So it's grown a lot over the last, I'd say 8 years. It's become a big thing at Mosaic, because we have a really nice campus and people love spending time there. Families come in. There's a lot of food stalls. So the community thing is super important to us. But it was difficult. It was difficult not to have Easter for us, because it's definitely one of the things that we love. We look forward to it every year. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra, effort that goes into it, and our teams spend a lot of time on Easter, and so we had to shift focus. So we had our normal services online. That's basically it from our side. But it was a big shock for us as well, because we had everything planned out,
Yeah, I think what Estienne is raising here is that I think maybe the hardest thing was that you spend probably, like we started last year already planning for Good Friday, went through the hassles, getting drawings, preparing content, people preparing music, all of that stuff, and then boom, it's gone. So it was quite a shock, but yeah.
Which is, how are you guys implementing Church Online from a technology perspective?
For us, we introduced a new platform which is called Living as One. So it has really helped us in terms of managing limitations of bandwidth now, because everyone is now online. So it has really helped us to really get the content out there. So we have been on YouTube for the longest of times. So the only change was that we introduced a live feed on our website, and also a live feed on Facebook. So that's basically, from a technology perspective, that's how we have adjusted because of the lockdown to have an online presence. And then, like I said earlier, we now also watch with a bigger interest the comments on the platforms, just to engage more with people. So that's, I guess, another technological advancement we have had to adjust to. And then also what other change we did because of the lockdown is that we had to scale down our production and our team. So although we're still using a lot, not really a lot, but quite a few bits of technology, but it's sort of like, how can I put it? We tried to make it as effective as possible. So with the tools that we have, we try to have the best reach we could with what we have here.
Yeah, from our side, there's a few applications for us that are involved in artworking this, and we have obviously the Living as One platform as well, which really helps us when we were still able to be in venue and kind of approach a live scenario where we're able to then ingest over our YouTube channel and so forth, and to remote locations that are streaming in. But then there's obviously the pre-recorded segments that we do that then just gets pushed to our YouTube channel, as well as our Hillsong website. There's just a link on there that the guys will be able to go to view our services there. And a lot of what we do is just obviously capturing content and making it available on mainly at this moment on our Hillsong website, and then that could sends them to any other platform they need. So it really came down, I think, in terms of the technology part of it. I think what we're investigating now, like we had a great discussion with some of our Sydney team earlier this morning, some of the broadcast team there, and we just had conversations around, hey, what is great tools to use, what's great approaches to use in this whole broadcast thought, what kind of equipment, what kind of mics, what kind of plugins, or what kind of Pro Tools tips are you guys using? And it's for us really thinking about, okay, we weren't so involved in broadcast, so maybe what is all the great resource out there that we can start implementing and looking at to improve that experience. So that's where we are at now, really investigating what is great stuff to use amongst what we're using and what we can use to improve the content or the messages that we're putting out there and the worship experiences that we're putting out there. So yeah, I'm sure it will change a bit as we're heading forward. Like we'll have maybe some live scenarios where we've gone really raw, like tonight, for example, we have our creative gathering. It's literally so raw, like someone's just plugged in, recorded himself on an iPhone, and he's recorded worship, and we're using that because we actually did a little survey with some of our team and just asked, like, hey, what are we missing on these Zoom hangouts or these little hangouts that we're doing? And a lot of them actually said like the online like worship experience, because we've been doing a lot of maybe culture conversations or practical things of how to do vocal warm-ups or how does this work and that work. But some of the guys were saying, hey, we actually just miss having a space where people can worship together, in this raw element. So we're like, great, let's see what that looks like. And someone just grabs his phone and we try and record maybe through an interface over a Zoom call or something like that. But that's at the moment where we're heading or what we're thinking about.
So yeah, we use a local company called Cloud Inc. They've got a great application called Flow, so which is a very similar backbone. Well, Interact, like I would say the UC for it is very similar to Living as One. You can schedule all your stuff, but it's set up by a gentleman named Philip. I think his surname's Westhuizen. But anyways, so we use Flow, which is very good. It's been good for us. It's great support. It's local, so we can contact the guys immediately. They run a lot of our things on a Sunday morning for us, so we use them. And then, for instance, from our side, most of that stuff gets a lot of our production, like I said, is still running. So we have a full our video team as which are actually a husband and wife that works together. They have a video suite at their house, so they can edit everything from there. So our audio is also done by a gentleman named Larish. He runs all of our post-production stuff. Does a lot of that for us. So everything is pretty standard. We have a similar setup. So from a technology point, we multi-track everything, run that in, mix it, send it out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the one last thing I would say is more just, I guess, an encouragement to everybody watching now. It's like we're being in our craft, maybe pertaining to more volunteers in the production kind of world of stuff. I think the biggest aspect of what we get to do here is we still get to learn from a lot of people. So it's great even having other churches here, and just we all, I think, knowing that we can all still learn from each other, and it's valuable to ask questions and create platforms like this where we are able to essentially shape, because it doesn't just affect us, it's literally affecting the world, and especially us as a nation. How do we as churches almost band together and learn from each other in reaching and using the tools in our hands effectively, and making sure we're in our world crafting environments like this, like you guys are doing, Nathan, from Sage Audio Works side, where we can actually gather and talk about the stuff, as simple as it may seem. But even just having this conversation could be the starting point of a lot of further great conversations. And I know you guys have quite a few great sessions still lined up in the days to come. And I would encourage everyone watching just to spread the word, make sure that we are equipping our teams with resources like this to watch and to lean in and to bring what they have to the table. And I think all of us are figuring this out together and learning how to navigate and do what we can to play our part, essentially. So it's a great. So thanks again.
Yeah, just to jump on that quickly, Nate. So true what Guillaume is saying. Like we're all in the same boat. We're all rowing in the same direction. But ask questions. Become part of a community. Ask. I've had to ask a lot of questions in the last 3 weeks. It's a lot of things I didn't know, but like it's valuable community. It's all about the people. So get together with people, get into these webinars, chat to everyone, get your friends involved. Check. There's a lot of forums on Facebook, for instance, on just one I saw the other day. Like there's a lot of great platforms online, like MixU, for instance. If you're struggling with audio, go and check out those platforms. Those guys are really well equipped and they have great information online. But get in contact with the guys, like for instance, like you said, Nathan, and then I'm on the phone with Nathan every day on live. So there's a lot of things. Get involved, become a part of it, and pull in your volunteers. Make them feel important, make them feel part of the team, because that's what we're about. So love your people, and yeah.
How are you including volunteers in broadcasts and host meetings?
From our side, we've opened up the platform and said, okay, guys, you know what? We know maybe you can't, serve on the coffee team, or you can't. We know that you can't physically serve on the production team now. So we've reallocated and said, listen, there's a lot of platforms. For instance, we do a lot of meals. Just an example, we do a lot of meals a year. I think we do roughly about 2.5 million meals. And we've been very fortunate to bump that up to an extra 60,000 over the last 3 weeks, which has been phenomenal. But people are getting involved in that. So if you're not serving there, serve somewhere else. There's always need in other places to involve volunteers, but from a technical aspect, with a broadcast and stuff, putting them on the hosts, moving into the host platforms, just involving in that way from our side. So we've been really trying to involve people and keep the community alive.
I think maybe if the question is even coming from a volunteer, what we've tried to do, because obviously a lot of our church is run by volunteers essentially, especially in production, and obviously there's a lot of skill that these various people bring. So especially in the broadcast related question that they might be asking, like how do they get involved in being a part of this broadcast, is maybe just making it known to whoever maybe your leader is, or whoever the technical person is in your world, and saying, hey, how can I get involved in outworking this broadcast? There's definitely all the help is welcome, especially people that are skilled. We've used a lot of people that are skilled that are not necessarily on staff within church, but they are very great at editing or live broadcast, or even in editing some of the social media platforms, or some of the we call them sites or images we're posting on Instagram or on the websites. They are very involved in helping us outwork that, because it's not just one avenue. So there's obviously quite a bit of avenues. So I think one of the main things is could just ask the question and let the guys know that you are keen to help and where your experience is, and just hopefully they're able to get you roped in. And even if there are meetings held around a topic of broadcast or that you're aware of and asking about, just sit in the room, ask if you can just be involved, and being in the room, then sometimes the ideas will come to you as to how you can help, and take it from there, I guess. I hope that kind of answers that.
Yeah, I think Estienne and Jerome has literally just covered everything. I think that main message is, if you want to get involved, raise your hand. Let's see how we can get you involved. The more help you get, the more advice. If you're watching online, and you know something, just let your tech leaders or whoever is involved or responsible for the broadcast, just advise. And we might not be able to physically be there to do the stuff, but it helps to hear sometimes that someone is watching and they are there with you to try and help you to get the best experience out of everything. Yeah. So I think, the essence is raise your hand and get involved. And then, then I think there's something else I also wanted to say, volunteers, that one of the things that I've realized as a leader, especially now in the lockdown, not that I haven't all this time, but I've really appreciated volunteers. They play a big role in what we do. We don't take it for granted, that they are there to help fulfill whatever the mandate or the vision of the church is. So we really, really appreciate volunteers. So they might not be involved now, they might not be doing much now, but we really appreciate their involvement. Whatever it is that they're doing, it's really a great help in fulfilling their vision.
And yeah, thanks again to everyone who participated this from a panel perspective. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's much appreciated. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.